like to hear a story? A story about Skip Fenwick, used car salesman? Of course, his real name isn't Skip. It's Moncrief Hunley Fenwick, largely derived from the maiden names of two grandmothers who lacked understanding. And of course, Skip isn't really a salesman either. He's more of what you might call, a used car clerk. And that's caused by a lack of understanding, too, on Skip's part. Now, don't misunderstand me. Skip isn't lazy. When somebody drops into the lot, Skip is mighty hospitable and glad to see them. He gives them all the attention anybody could expect. And if they see a car they like, Skip is very happy to sell it to them. But that's just the trouble, you see. Not enough people drop in to keep Skip happy, and he spends most of his time basking in the sun. Anyhow, Skip Fenwick had an accident. This all happened one day 3 or 4 months ago. He was having his lunch down at Tessie's restaurant, and Tess said to him,
"Hey, Skip."
And Skip came back with a snappy,
Yeah, Tessie?
You got maybe a 46 Pontiac that hasn't gone too far, Skip. A good-looking job you'd take a chance on recommending to a gentleman friend of mine, Have you, Skip,
Yes, Tess, I have. Tell your friend to drop in. But he better hurry. It won't last long.
Well, you won't either, Skip, unless you take the pressure off the seat of your pants. What business do you think you're in? Now you get right over and see him with that bargain of yours. He tends bar at that place.
Well, Skip didn't put up any argument because nobody ever thinks of discussing differences of opinion with Tessie. To save trouble, he just drove the car over to the gentleman friend's place of business, and by golly, he made a sale. So when it was all over, Skip returned to his post of duty with the brick wall as a prop. But now, instead of soaking up the sun, Skip had something else to do. He had plenty of time to carry on a conversation with himself. It went something like this.
Now look here, Skip Fenwick. Maybe Tessie put her finger on a big idea there. Big idea? How do you mean? I mean, maybe you ought to get off the lot more than you do. Move around and put the quiz act on people like Tess who know prospects for used cars. Oh, but look, most used cars are sold on the lot. If I got away from the lot, I'd be running away from sales. I'm not so sure about that. You're not sure. Look, used car buyers work fast. They get a raise in pay, or they have a lot of trouble with their old car, or something else happens. And what do? They burn a trail to a used car lot and make a fast buy. If I was out scouting around town, I'd never see him. Yes, I used to have that idea. But I'll bet one thing. I'll bet it takes as much time for a man to buy a used car as it does for another man to buy a new one. Before a man even goes into a lot, I'll bet he spends a lot of time talking to his friends and reading used car ads and maybe just walking past lots reading the prices on windshields. Then, once he's made up his mind, he goes in and usually buys pretty fast. But you see, Skip, he's more than likely to go to a competitive used car lot. And then you've lost him. You've got to get to him while he's still trying to make up his mind what to do. Now you want me to be a mind reader. How do you expect me to find him before he tells me he wants to buy? Why, through bird dogs like Tess, for one thing. People you know, who talk to lots of people during the day. Name a couple. Well, people like your mail carrier and your grocery store man and your bank clerk. I get it. And people like my barber, my dentist, my doctor. Yeah, and your friends, too. Let everybody know that you're in the business of selling used cars, and that you'll appreciate tips on people who are talking about buying used cars. But don't stop with that. No? No. Keep after them. Keep reminding them. Be sure they don't forget. Now, I wonder, just how's the best way to start lining up these bird dogs? Yeah, let's go out and see. I need a haircut anyhow. Did I ever tell you I sell used cars, Tony?
Well, no, I'm not thinking that you did, Mr. Skip.
Well, I do. And if you ever hear anyone saying he wants to buy a good used car, let me know, will you, Tony?
Oh, sure thing, Mr. Skip. And you know, I'm a-thinking that you have come to the right place.
You are knowing... I mean, you do know someone?
Oh, sure thing. I'm a-thinking this Mr. Allen is saying to me this morning. Tony is saying, I'm have no appetite for this wreck of mine.
Fed up, huh? Say, give me his address and I'll...
So, Skip found out all he could about Mr. Allen. What kind of a car he had, what kind he wanted, how many in the family, and everything else he could. And back at the lot, he made a telephone call to Mr. Allen.
Hello? Mr. Allen? This is Skip Fenwick with Midstate Motors, the Lincoln Mercury dealer. That's right. I understand you're in the market for a good used car. Yes, news certainly gets around. Oh, what kind of a car are you interested in, Mr. Allen? Well, it just happens we took one in yesterday. It's a good, clean job, in excellent condition. I'd like to bring it over and show it to you. How about 7 tonight? Oh, okay, then. 7:30. Goodbye, Mr. Allen.
With that start, Skip built up a list of, 10 or 12 bird dogs with 5 or 6 he could depend on for pretty regular tips. To his original list of Tessie, Tony the barber, the mail carrier, his grocer, bank clerk, dentist, and doctor, Skip added his insurance man and a gas station operator and an independent garage man.
Hiya, Tim. You got anything for me today?
Always looking for something, ain't you, Skip?
Yeah. And I'm keeping the seat of my pants a lot longer. What do you got today, Tim?
Well, I think you might do some good if you got in touch with Oscar Freitag, 1040 Burns Avenue. Told me yesterday, Tim, fix it up. Little as you can, I'm going to trade it in. And Oscar always buys used cars.
So, as was his habit by this time, Skip got all the background information he could about Oscar, his car, and his family. Every scrap that would help in understanding Oscar's needs, likes, and dislikes. He makes a special point of that background information because it comes in handy so many times. If, for example, you know that a prospect is a family man with a brood of kids, you know he wants a sedan. Or, with the right kind of information, you'd know that another prospect would go fast for a station wagon. That's the sort of thing I mean. Skip also picked up another slant. Besides getting the backgrounds on prospects, he was also learning all he could about the cars. He figured it this way. There's something about every one of these used cars that made somebody buy it in the first place. Those features, he figured, are just as interesting to used car prospects as they were to the original buyer. So every time a model came in that he wasn't familiar with, he gave it a good going over to find out what he could say about it. He looked over competitive sales literature covering the particular model. But that still wasn't enough. Not for Skip. He found out, too, what the manufacturers had said about it. At the library, he went through old issues of magazines, made notes of the big features in the automobile ads, and he found plenty of things to talk about. Well, long about 2 or 3 months after that conversation he'd had with Tessie, Skip Fenwick was pretty much in business. But he still wasn't satisfied. He'd more than doubled his sales of preferred used cars. Cars that he'd like to have in stock to balance the used car inventory. There's a big advantage, you see, Skip, in having a balanced inventory of the used car makes and models that are in popular demand. When you've got what people want, it's just naturally easier to make sales.
Sure, that adds up. But how do I get them? What do I do with that list of preferred cars?
And so I told him about a few ways to do the job. The dealership can give better allowances when a preferred used car is traded in on a Lincoln or a Mercury, I told him. So be sure the new car department knows how things are moving on the lot, what makes and models are needed to keep the used car inventory in balance. They'll bring in that faster-moving merchandise by offering better trade-in deals. Then, when you get those better used cars, go out and sell them fast as they come in. Keep on studying the features of those cars the way you've been doing. Keep on using your bird dogs and finding out as much as you can about the prospects they tip you on. But don't stop there, Skip, I said to him. Use your owner's file. Go out and spear license numbers and make cold approaches. Well, Skip did pretty much like I told him, and in a few weeks he was shifting gears without slipping his clutch.
Hello? Mr. Jarvis? This is Skip Fenwick with Midstate Motors, the Lincoln Mercury dealer. Yes. Well, we just took in a 47 Pontiac 6 sedan. Excellent condition. Only 25,000 miles, Mr. Jarvis. And I thought about you right away. Yeah, that's right. I'd like to bring it over for you to look at tonight. Around 8? Sure, that'll be fine, Mr. Jarvis.
Yep, Skip began keeping his owner's file pretty busy, calling from 5 to 10 every day, depending on what new jobs came onto the lot. And he kept his eye peeled when he was out on the street, looking for cars that were on his preferred list that might be traded for later models that were on the lot, jotting down their license numbers and turning those license numbers over to the girl.
Yeah, you talk it over with your husband, and I'll call back this evening. Goodbye, Mrs. Callahan.
Yep, Skip went after the owners of cars he'd spotted on the street, and he put the idea of trading into lots of places where it hadn't been before. But when he could talk face to face with the owner of a car that was on the preferred list, he did just that.
Good morning. This your car?
Yeah. What about it?
I'm Skip Fenwick with Midstate Motors, the Lincoln Mercury dealer. We need a car just like yours for one of our old customers. If I could give you a good allowance for your car on a trade for a later model, would you trade today?
Maybe. How much?
Well, what do you think would be fair? Or better yet, suppose we go over to the lot right now and see how much.